Well, hey everybody, this is Joe Van Cleve. Good day. You know, this is a World War II era anniversary speed graphic. It's been my one and only commercially manufactured large format camera since the late 1980s, maybe. I've had this for a long time. I have the original Kodak Ektar lens. This is a newer Fujinon 135 f5.6 lens, a more accurate modern shutter. The curtain shutter in this camera, though, still works. Not incredibly accurate, but it still works. So this is my old 4x5 workhorse speed graphic, and this is a cardboard box that just arrived today. Let's see what's in it, shall we? Now, I normally don't do unboxing videos because I don't really unbox that many things, the truth be told. I don't buy that much new camera equipment. I'm usually generations behind the state of the art. Okay, we have some craft paper, and look at what we have here. Does that start to look familiar to anybody? Let's see what we got here. Some brown craft paper, some bubble wrap. I don't know if it's in good shape or not. The box looks like it arrived from overseas just fine, over in England. So now I've given you several clues. If you're into large format cameras, you might already be somewhat familiar with this. This is an Intrepid 4x5 view camera. A modern, newly designed camera made from marine grade plywood and custom made fixtures and a bellows. And I ordered the dark blue bellows. So let's see, how do we open this? Well, this is the base of the camera with a tripod bushing. And what you do is, now I've only seen this done from the perspective of YouTube videos, but you loosen the back two locking nuts for the rear standard and fold the rear standard up, and we'll lock those into place here. And I have my camera on autofocus, so I need to keep it right about here for the autofocus point. Then you have a locking thumb screw and three different positions for the front lens board, for the front standard, based on the focal length of your lens that you're going to be using. And so I'm going to just temporarily put it into the middle position. And the middle of the bed here is geared to a rack gear system, so it moves in and out for focusing. And then this is the front standard with the lens board. It raises up. There is a middle position with a detent notch, where if you put the thumb screws in that detent notch, you are essentially centered on the axis of the film plane. Look at that. Isn't that a handsome camera? So I don't recall the specs on how light it is, but extremely lightweight. I mean, I can literally, pick it up with my pinky finger. So very lightweight. It feels pretty sturdy. To do front movements, you will loosen the front, the locking knob on the front standard, and then you can do your various side movements if you need to. Then also you unlock the two side knobs. You can do front rise and fall, and you can also do front tilt, one way or the other, like this or that, based on your needs for correcting geometry of your subject in the field. Now, I had ordered a lens board for this camera, and I was expecting it to be in the package, and it wasn't. So it does come shipped with a protective plate for protecting the ground glass view screen on the back, which we'll take a look at right here. This is actually, I believe it is a plastic material. And as I remember the instructions, you just simply rotate the back to do portrait or landscape mode. Let's see if we can get the camera to focus. So that is going to be portrait or landscape mode, and then it simply rotates like this to do portrait mode. And then you have these elastic kind of bungee cords that provide you with the spring tension for the film holder to fit into the film plane there. Well, there it is. So I'm going to have to temporarily, until my permanent lens board arrives, I'm going to have to make myself a little lens board from model aircraft plywood and mount my lens in there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about my initial impressions of this camera. So I am not reviewing the camera, I've only just unpacked it, so I will probably be doing some more videos in the future about it. Let's first of all talk about the rear view screen. So the rear view screen is removable. As you can see, I've removed it. You remove the two elastic bands out of the way, and then the screen pops right off from the rotating frame. One thing that I initially did notice was that the ground glass view screen, the inside of it, which would be the dull side, it was covered with kind of an oily film, and I'm assuming that that comes from, they have a sprayed on waterproof material that they've coated the wood with in order to protect it from the weather, and I'm assuming that that material has outgassed and coated the film, a little film of that oily substance on the screen. So I just used some computer screen cleaner and a microfiber cloth, and that is basically taking care of that problem. So to put the screen back in place, you have these two side brackets that actually slide in and out on screwed slots, and so you want to just make sure that those are slid out to the side so the view screen pops back in there, and then you can relocate the elastic bands to the little slots in the back of the view screen itself, like that. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, let's talk about fit and finish. It's not artisanal grade woodworking. This is a practical camera and reasonably priced. I paid just over $300 US for the camera, which is unheard of low price for a camera like this. So there's obviously some trade-offs that come into play when you're marketing a camera at that price point. So the woodworking is a little rough. It's not, like I say, cabinetry grade woodworking, but it looks to be entirely functional. It looks like from what I can tell, this marine grade plywood hopefully will be very durable, and we will find out. Some of the surfaces, like down here, they feel just a little bit rough, like they weren't sanded as smooth as they could have been before they put the coating or whatever they use. You can stretch out the bellows. I don't know exactly how far it goes, but if you need any more lens extension, you can always move the lens standard up to the front position here to get more draw if you are using a long lens, or if you're focusing close up. But it looks pretty straightforward, and like I say, the fit and finish, these wood metal brackets look pretty durable, pretty secure. I would say, comparing it to the Speed Graphic, which is right here, my impression would be, obviously the Speed Graphic is more solid camera because it's essentially a box, and with a lot more metal hardware and stuff on the bed. But the Speed Graphic does not have the movements that this camera does. And it's certainly, the Speed Graphic is certainly heavier. So this thing is really lightweight, and I hope it's going to serve me well as a field camera for taking out in the great outdoors and doing large format photography. Well, so I've decided I'm going to go ahead and make myself a makeshift lens board until the one I ordered comes in. So I've measured the opening here, and it needs to be approximately 3 3/4 inches wide by 3 7/8 inches tall, and it's a much thinner lens board on the edge than my Speed Graphic lens board. So what I've done is I went to the hobby shop and I got some 3/32 birch plywood, model airplane plywood. It's slightly too thick, but what I've done is I've sanded down the top and bottom edge slightly so that they'll fit in the little brackets right here. Then I took the lens out of the lens board, and so the way these large format lenses work is, this is a Copal Zero shutter in the Fujinon lens, and you unscrew the rear element, and then there is a threaded mounting ring. And I measured the diameter of the thread here is about 1 5/16 approximately. I had a 1 1¼ inch hole saw. And so what I did is I noticed that by using the 1 1/4 inch hole saw and then taking a little bit of sandpaper to the edge, it's a little bit bigger than 1 1/4 inch, and now I can actually cut threads in the thin plywood using the thread of the lens mount itself. It'll actually thread itself snugly onto the lens board like I'm doing right now. And I've, of course, spray painted this just with some flat black, matte black spray paint, just to get it nice and non-shiny. And so now I have to decide, I have to put the lens so that the shutter and aperture settings are on the top, which is going to be right, I believe, let's see, where do I want it? Oh yeah, on the other way. They're like this. Like that. And then I'm going to mount the little locking collar and put the rear element back on. And so here it is, my Fujinon 135 mounted to the Intrepid 4x5 with a makeshift black plywood lens board. The paint job is not the greatest, but it's just a temporary expediency until I get the metal lens board in from Intrepid. But there you go. So I'm all set tomorrow to do some test exposures, I'm hoping, and we'll see what happens. For transporting this out in the field, one of several ways you could do it. You could take off the lens board, which means you're going to have to find a protective little soft bag to put the lens in your backpack, and then you can remove the thumb screw and collapse the entire camera down. The other alternative, if you're traveling on foot a short distance from your vehicle, is just to leave the camera deployed like this with the lens on it in your car, and when you get to your location, just mount it to the tripod and carry it like this. The thing is so lightweight, even with the lens on it, it's so lightweight that you know, I don't see any problem there. One other little thing I'll point out to you, I should say, is the focusing rack. If you extend it to the back so it sticks out like that, then it'll interfere with rotating the back, obviously. So just make sure that when you are wanting to rotate from portrait to landscape or vice versa, that you have the focusing rack forward a little bit, at least flush, so you can do the rotation there. I'm overall pretty pleased initially with the weight of the camera, elegantly simple design. I didn't expect it to have heirloom quality construction in it, considering the price, but I'm hoping it'll be sturdy and quite usable. And so I will report back to you in another video when I have some first results from out in the field.